So it's 7 p.m. right now, and I think we can go ahead and start. Hiromi-san, are we on live? Is it all good now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so hi guys, good evening. My name is Nicole. I am a senior year student at Okayama University, and I am a bilingual community associate intern at JPort powered by Speak. So today I will be your host for this event. So yoroshiku onegaishimasu. So for today, since we're doing a live stream, you don't have to turn your cameras on, but feel free to unmute your mic when you ask a question. Okay, so anyway, to give a short introduction to our company, JPort is an abbreviation for Japan's port. Our belief is that everyone should have the right to access resources when making decisions about your future. So we are a job hunting media platform that aims to empower young global talents and international students in Japan, like yourselves, as well as me, by providing a variety of information available in both English and Japanese, from basic information to company and industry analysis. So before we begin, I would like to remind everyone to mute yourself throughout the event, but there will be a Q&A session in between and at the end of this event. So please feel free to unmute your mics then. If you have any questions you would like to ask directly during the Q&A session, feel free to raise your hands or leave your questions in the chat below. And then, yeah, so just to check in, everybody try raising their hands so we can see if we're all good with the Zoom functions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I think this is good. Thank you so much. You can put your hands down. But anyway, I think we can begin. So please welcome our mentor for today's event, Hiromi Karahashi-san. Hiromi-san studied abroad in the US for 8 years from the age of 16, and similar to us, he spent his school years in an international environment and was an international student himself. Since then, he has worked in a variety of companies in Japan, including large corporations, small and medium-sized companies, and startups. So now he is leading a startup that is JPort powered by Speak to change the job hunting landscape for global talents and international students. So I will now be giving the spotlight to Hiromi-san. Onegaishimasu.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Hello, everybody.
Hiromi-san, I think your audio is a bit soft.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can everybody hear okay?
I'm not sure about other people. If you can hear him well.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Saka-san. Thank you. Oh, so I think everybody can hear me okay?
It's all good.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, nice audience we got here today. Thank you so much. So yeah, hi, my name is Hiromi. So today, I'm not here to give you any lecture or anything. I will give you some basics seminar in just about, I don't know, very quickly, maybe 15 minutes, and then I'll take Q&A and I'll explain about other basics for another 15 minutes and take a lot of questions. I just want to say congratulations for you guys because you guys came here today. This is probably the beginning of your job hunting or shukatsu in Japan. So I would really encourage you guys to ask as many questions as possible because I am not the interviewer. So you can ask me stupid questions, good questions, dumb questions, smart questions, any questions. So, take this opportunity. We have 1 hour together today. So yeah, let's get right to it, right? Okay, so today's agenda. Okay, so before that, sorry. So I get a lot of questions from international students. I have done maybe like 300 career consultations with so many students. So people wonder, where do I first start? What's the basic things, right? Or job hunting system in Japan? What's the schedule like? Or how do I prepare and that kind of thing. So I would like to cover all these 5 questions today. All right, let's go next. But before I start, I think people might be wondering, does COVID-19 affect my job hunting, right? So my clear and straight answer to you is that no, most of the time. So what are the industry that's getting, a massive impact because of COVID? Like, travel industry, they are cutting down a lot of cost, and also they're not really aggressively hiring so many people. Airline agencies, hotels, those are the industries that got massive hit by COVID-19. So that's not a good news. But the rest of the industries, like, manufacturers or consulting firms or finance or any industry that you can name, are actually still hiring. So COVID-19, yes, it does give some, like, a little effect, but it really does not change what you have to prepare and everything. So just, 安心してください。大丈夫です。Okay, so today's agenda. So I'm going to be spending 15 minutes, about 15 minutes first, to talk about basics about job hunting. And I'm going to touch upon the most important thing in job hunting called your story. In Japanese, they call it like, 自己 PR とか、学生時代に何を頑張りましたか kind of questions. So how do you come up with those stories, right? So I'm going to touch upon that for the first 15 minutes, and I'll take Q&A. And 3, 4, 5, I'm going to touch upon it, and the rest of the 15 minutes. And then I'm going to, allocate a lot of time for you guys to ask a lot of questions. So yeah. So first off, maybe you're from Mongolia or Vietnam or China or US. I don't know where you're from, but if it's your country outside of Japan, you apply to a company to a particular position, right? So you're entry-level specialist. So for example, if you want to be an accountant, you have to major in like finance, right? So, and that's why your GPA should matter. And also you want to have some kind of license like CPA, CFA, that kind of things. So like, it's more visible, like hard things, like hard skills matter. That's the kind of job hunting in the rest of the world. But in Japan, let's go next slide. Yeah, thank you. So traditional large companies in Japan. So you might have heard of this, but there's a concept called generalist, 総合職. So in Japan, you don't apply to a position, you apply to the whole company. So let's say if it's Toyota, you apply to Toyota. And then after you get into the company, the HR people are going to try to, assess your qualification and all that, and they will try to appoint you to maybe sales, HR, procurement, international business, trading. I don't know what kind of department you're going to go into. So that's that. So that is why your major really doesn't have to matter so much. So your story is something that they care more about, like potentials, right? So for example, right? Take me for an example. Do you know what my major was back in undergraduate? It was criminal psychology, and my first job is business, like sales and marketing. It's not related, right? But I had your story, so I'm going to touch upon that later. But yeah, so that's that. But things are changing little by little. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So if you talk about like modern and relatively like new companies, but large companies or startups in Japan, let's say, Rakuten, I don't know, Line, all those companies, right? SoftBank, that kind of companies. They do try to hire in more like a Western style, I would say. So, for business major students, you're still going to apply to the company, right? So your story matters. You can be measuring on almost anything. But especially if you're a tech student or STEM students or creative students, then your specialty like really matters. So what you need to present is like portfolio, GitHub, product, or that kind of things. But still, even in these jobs, your story does matter. But in these tech jobs or creative jobs, it really matters. So major does matter. Okay, let's go next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about the industries in Japan. So there are a lot of like industries in Japan. But like just so many companies in Japan, and majority of the companies in Japan are called meika. So they make something. They make a product, right? Like Shiseido, Kosei, or I don't know, Sony or Panasonic or something like that, right? So your meika is like the biggest industry in Japan, but there are so many other industries as well, like software, finance, trading, and all that, right? So let's go next. And I guess some of the international students have interest to work for like a non-Japanese company, like international companies. It's called gaishike, right? So there are pretty much 3 categories in gaishike who hires like fresh graduate: consulting firms, financial firms, and business firms. So you know these names in consulting firms and financial firms, but business sector is kind of interesting. So like say cosmetic companies like Johnson and Johnson, Unilever, L'Oreal, or car related, automobile related like Bosch, Audi, Daimler, or software companies like SAP Japan, Apple, Salesforce, Google, Apple, Pfizer, all those. So these are kind of like companies who hires fresh graduates. There are more on the list. I'm just listing it as an example for you guys. Okay, let's go next. So from here on, I'm going to touch upon your story, right? So let's go to next slide. So the definition of your story is, or I should say in Japanese, it's called 自己 PR. So what the heck is that, right? So it's about like appealing your uniqueness or strength. Let's go to next. So from here on, I'm going to touch upon when to build up your story, and also I'm going to touch upon the job hunting schedule in Japan at the same time as well. So in Japan, job hunting starts in your third year if you're undergraduate students. So before you enter a company, probably like one or almost like 2 years before you enter a company, you can get ready to do a job hunting. It's never too late to start early, right? So in the beginning of your third year, maybe you might want to have some sort of like story that you can tell, but don't worry, I'm gonna give you some more examples later. Let's go to the next slide to check out the schedule. So this is the job hunting timeline, right? So as you can see, we're comparing, Nikkei versus Gaisha, so Japanese company versus international companies, right? So if you can see it, like ES stands for entry sheet, like online application, right? So most of Japanese companies start taking application for full-time position on like March 1st. So like that's like what, like few months before you enter your fourth year, right? But that's like most of the case. There's always exception, so be careful with that. But what's important here is that the international companies, the gashi companies, recruit earlier than Japanese companies. So let's say if you want to go to consulting firms, most of the companies are for international company, right? So they would, start their online application a lot earlier than Japanese companies. Just saying, okay? So yeah, that's that. Okay, let's go next. So yeah, we can skip this slide, I guess. Let's go next. So yeah, I just want to touch upon why your story is important, because this is the typical format of resume in Japanese. You don't have to be scared by looking at this now. Let's go to the next slide. So most of the things you're going to write, most of the story that you're going to write is about your story. So there's nothing so much about like writing about like the company, right? There's only this one section called Shibodoki, which is also important. So my point is that when you apply to companies, you gotta know yourself. You gotta know what you gotta sell, right? So that is called like your story. So yeah, that's that. And next slide, I'm gonna talk about the few examples of like what good your story includes sometimes. So for example, in the big, right? Like internship is always good. If you have done like long-term internship, that's always good. They actually increase the number of like startup internships in Japan. So that's that. It can be about TA, teaching assistant, exchange program, or some, volunteer activity that you did, or social impact or business competition on that sort of things. Or it can be even vital if if you really commit to it or something, right? Okay. But I guess you wouldn't know how I should decide, like my story, right? Your story. Let's go to the next slide. So you gotta ask yourself, right? When you pick, like, let's say you have like eight stories that you listed up. So it has to be something that you're passionate about and something that different, like unique. And if you have done that thing for a long term, that's a good sign of your story. So just to keep in mind, そんな感じですね. Okay. Let's go next. So the reason why you need your story is that when you apply to companies online, you will need to like really write it. So it's really too late if you start writing it like on March 1st or something. So it's really better for you to prepare this like right now. So they would ask you like, what's the, gakuchika? What is the thing that you put most of your effort into? Or like, what's your strengths? What kind of person are you? And now, of course, like Shibodoki. But don't be demotivated by this. But when you apply to companies in Japan, let's say when I applied to companies, when I was a fresh graduate, I think I applied to maybe 50 companies. And in this first like online application screening, I think half of the companies just cut me off. It's just how it is. Competitive companies, they have so many applicants. So even if you get rejected by a few companies, like please don't be demotivated. That's just how the game of shukatsu works here in Japan. Okay, let's go next. So I'm gonna get into the more details or examples of your story right now. So I just want to highlight or demonstrate a bad example of your story myself. Okay, so let's say you're my interviewer. Okay, you're interviewing me, and you'll be asking, oh, okay, あなたの強みは何ですか? What's your strengths or something, right? And I'll be like, I actually have a very great communication skills. I'm a good communicator. My mom always says that my best friend always say that I'm a good leader. So yeah, I have a very good communication skills. Trust me. Right. Okay. That was really bad. Right. Do you know why it's bad? Maybe you can guess. I don't know. Okay. I think it was bad because it was not detailed enough. I said that I have communication skills, but I didn't give you any examples or evidence of what I claim, right? So let's go to the next slide. So these are all like true stories from the international students that I have supported in the past. So, first, like she did a very, extensive internship in Fukuoka for about 2 months. And she also led like media team this was a multicultural event in her campus. And she actually learned like AI, Photoshop, and Wix on her own. Or, this second person, it was just a fun activity among friends. And this person successfully grew it to like 100 plus participants and without any budget. And they actually make a few bucks, a few money because they sold tickets, right? So that sounds like more entrepreneurial. Or this person went to exchange and that kind of thing. So maybe you have this kind of story, okay? But don't worry. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about a student that I have done career consultation maybe like 1 year ago. So she was not from a famous university, University of Tokyo とかじゃなくて, I'm not going to say which university, but her university is not so famous, like mid-class. And then in the beginning, she just didn't know where to start because it's kind of weird to think about like what's your strength and potential. It's just not in the culture, right? But then now she's working at a large modern Japanese companies because she figured out this your story thing really matters. So let's go through the process of her brainstorming and all that. So let's go to the next slide. So when she came into my office, she said that so what I asked her, what do you want to do? And she's like, my university is not so top class, a little pessimistic. She was like, I don't know which industry I want to work in. Maybe B2C, like cosmetic companies or consumer products company, because I use it. And maybe they do globalize as well. And she does say that I am aggressive, but she didn't have any backup stories to, back up that, to claim that she is an aggressive individual, right? And yeah, she says so many things, right? And when I dig in deeper, she started to tell me a lot of stories, like like the cultural difficulties that she faced when she first came here, and she said that she's aggressive. And I dig in deeper. Okay, what kind of thing did you do in college? And she said, "Oh, my zemi was like entrepreneurial research seminar." So, and then when I dig in deeper, she had a lot of good stories here. So, next slide, please. In short, how we concluded her story is that this is the header sentence. So she claimed that she is an adaptable and aggressive at the same time. So she came from, obviously, she was a Vietnamese student. So she came from Vietnam to Japan. So that's obviously adaptable, right? And also aggressive, because who would get out of the country, right? That's already a good your story number one. And I think you guys all have it because most of you are international students. And yeah, it's like so many other things that she said. And she could say that she was proactive. And she also did a long-term internship. So it was good for her, right? So I kind of rushed to finish until this point. But Nicole, should we take some questions?
Yeah. So if any one of you have any questions, you can raise your hand right now. Like it can be anything related to like your own story or okay. Lauren, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for this great presentation. So basically, my question is, I've graduated in 2020. So am I still considered as a shukatsu, or have I already passed that point?
Okay, thank you, thank you. Could you mute yourself? We can't really. Okay, thank you, thank you. So, okay, I think I heard you. So you have already graduated. So do recruiters consider you as a fresh graduate, right? Um, well, most of the companies will still consider you as a graduate. Oh, thank you. Oh yeah. So yeah, I think you can still be considered a fresh graduate. It's just 2 years, but I think what they want to ask you is that. So what have you done in those 2 years? Did you go to grad school, or what was your experience there? And so if you can convince them, then that's okay. Yes. There's another
Yeah,
person raising hand.
Sige, you can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much for your presentation. I
Yes.
wanted to kind of confirm. So you mentioned Jikopuyar
Mm.
and your story and also Gakuchika. So can you use like the same format for all of them? Do they mean the same thing or are they different in some kind of way? Because I think I got confused.
Okay. Sure. I can show you something, but just give me 1 second, please. Okay.
Should I stop sharing?
Yes, I will try to find if I can share my screen. Okay, let me just share my screen. Hopefully it's not going to stop, but okay, that's a very good question. Thank you so much. So, 自己 PR and gakuchika. Let's just focus on these two because it's quite confusing sometimes, okay? So, this is the outline for 自己 PR. It's like it comes from like, it starts with the thesis statement, conclusion. So, what's your strengths? I have good communication skills. And what is the experience that demonstrates that? And what was the difficulty that you faced to prove that, you are aggressive or something? And then specific action taken or result. This is kind of called STAR method. So situation and task and results and action. So this is the kind of like format. I would say that you can follow. Gakuchika is also kind of similar. You can try to follow this format, but the key difference between Jikopian and Gakuchika is that Gakuchika is more about like who you are. So you can include one or you can include like multiple stories. Like let's say you come from Philippines and I was a cheerleader and I did internship. Oh, that's our MC Nicole's case. So like you can include multiple stories to show who you are, right? But Gakuchika is just one thing. So let's say I did cheerleading and this is the difficulties that I faced. Did I make sense?
Yeah, very much. Thank you.
Okay. I think we can take a few more questions.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, thank you. So on the topic of GKPR and Gakuchika, so when you're writing an ES, for example, and we apply to many different companies, would it be advisable to format the GKPR or Gakuchika for the company, or is it normal to just write the same thing for all of the ES?
That's a very practical question. Good question. Thank you, Riley. I think some people do change it depending on the company. I don't recommend it because how can you fake yourself, right? Because it's about you. But on the other hand, shibodoki, like why you chose the company, that you have to change that, of course, because each company do different business, right? But when it comes to about like jiko PR or gakuchika, these are all your story. So I really suggest you to really think about like if you're convinced with your story, then you don't really have to read off from the script. You know, if you read off from the script during the interview, then I think people will not buy it, right?
Right.
But if it's something that you really think, okay, I'm proud of this, you know, then I think you'll be able to convince people. So I think I recommend you to take a lot of time to kind of think about good story, your story. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Good.
Like you said, you can use just one, but like, what if I have like many different strengths? Like I'm logical, but I'm also persevering or something. Like,
okay.
Because my thinking was like, depending on the company, if they value this like characteristic more, I should give them this version or something like that.
Okay. I think if my recommendation is that when you do like self-analysis or come up with like stories, you can try to have like, I don't know, 5 main stories or something, right? And then, but your key sentence, like, oh, I'm logical, or I'm a challenger or something, right? That if you can really convey the message, you can change it. But if you feel like you're faking yourself, then I don't recommend you to change it, because even if you pass the online application, you're gonna have to do the interview, and you won't be able to convince them. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. There are 2 more questions. Okay.
Sure.
Abu, you can go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Nicole and Hiromi. Really nice presentations. Quick 2 questions, but I'll just ask 1 question because there's another question from somebody else. For a Shibodoki, what points should we keep in mind to make sure that we match what companies are actually looking for when we're writing Shibodoki? And how do we make sure that we don't overlap the information with Jikopia and Gakuchika? Sometimes we try to write something and then they overlap with Gakuchika and Jikopia when we're writing Shibodoki. So how do we be careful not to sound redundant?
Great question. Are you already doing job hunting? It sounds like you are.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I just finished Tokyo Career Forum.
お疲れ様でした.
Thank you so much.
Okay. By the way, I used to do an internship there, so I could give you some recommendation later. But anyways,
please.
But that's a very good question. I will actually touch upon Shibodoki right after this Q&A session. So I will save the best part to later. But to answer your question simply, Shibodoki has to include your strength. So Shibodoki is a mixture of your strength and what you like about the company or what the company does. And if it has to overlap, like, so you have to, I'll tell you later, but your strength should be utilized in this company because somehow it matches. Maybe it's the language part, or maybe it's the proactivity part or something. So that's how you should write Shibodoki. Did I answer your question?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
But when you're saying that my strengths should be there as well, right? But I'm already mentioning my strengths in Jikopia or Gakuchika.
Yes.
So do you think that there are companies who would ask for Gakuchika and Shibodoki all at the same time? Because sometimes when I do entry sheets, if they're asking for Shibodoki, they won't ask for Gakuchika. And if they're asking for Gakuchika, they won't ask for Shibodoki. I've never seen 2 questions at the same time in one entry sheet.
Well, they actually do. They actually,
really? Okay.
Some companies do have like 8 questions on their entry sheet. And I'm like, isn't it like all the same thing, right? But then you have to kind of like, so that's why you should have like a lot of stories. Like strongest story should go to Gakuchika. Jikopia should include maybe 3, 4 stories about you, and maybe you should have like backup stories as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, you can ask more questions at the end again, so I'll be waiting for your questions. There's another hand, right?
Yeah, I think it was on Hasa. Go ahead.
I can wait until after. That's fine.
No, it's okay. We still have time. You can ask questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to ask about internship. Currently, I'm a first year student. Will become a second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Currently, I'm a first year student, and I will become a second year student this October. So I'm trying to find internships, to learn more. But most internship in Japan, they only accept like third year students from above. So far, what I could find is like some summer internships in from some university. So other than that, do you have any recommendations like where we can find things like that?
Great question. Thank you so much. And I admire your, proactivity to start off from first year. I think in my first year I was just drunk. But anyways, I will actually give you the real actual name of a great platform that there is in Japan at the end. But just to answer your question quickly, I think you should ask yourself, do I want to do a long-term internship, or do I want to do like 1 day, 2 days internship? It's not even internship, it's just company tour kind of thing that exists in Japan. Which one are you kind of like talking about? Long-term or like really short-term?
I think long term, around 6 months to 1 year.
Absolutely.
Well, do you think there's anything that we can learn from like 1 day and 2 days internship? It's actually my first time hearing about it. So, okay, then I think the answer is no. So long term. Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, it's live stream, so I don't want to say anything too aggressive. But yeah, no, pretty much. Probably not learning, but just get to know the people, get to know the vibe of the company. I think that will be it. Some companies do like in 1 day or 2 days internship. Some company will give you like some kind of group work, and you can actually perform like, at the end of the second day or something. But in terms of like life experience wise, I think it's just 1 day or 2 days. Of course, you can't obtain that kind of things, I guess, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes, there is still, quick Q&A session at the end again. So please ask many questions.
I'll share my screen again.
All right,
Go ahead,
cool.
Hiroi-san.
All right, thank you. So yeah, a lot of great questions here. And as you can see in this picture, now from here on, we're going to be talking about, like shibodoki pretty much. So why you want to work in this company. So if you can see it clearly, so you should try to prove that you're better than others. That's on the left circle, right? But at the same time, you want to say that your strength should match with what the company wants. So it's all about match, like a dating app, right? So let's go to the next slide. So just to talk about the expectation of the companies, now we have to think in the recruiter's eyes. We cannot be too subjective. I know you're applying, that maybe some of you are desperate, but we have to really think in the recruiter's perspective now, because we're talking about why I should hire you kind of thing, right? So companies expect pretty much two things, okay? First one is about like jiko PR strength. So how unique are you, right? How rich is your story? How can you stand out from other candidates? That we covered in the first and second section. And here I'm going to talk about like good understanding about the company and the business. So in order to write a good like motive or shibodoki, you really have to study the company, because then you're just writing off something that's kind of easy to, I mean, if recruiters, they're very experienced, so they can really tell if you have done your homework or not. And the first way to do it, this is a very simple, not even an equation. So any company in the world, it consists of pretty much three things. So sales, costs, and profit. So sales consists of customers, all right? If it's like a consumer products, let's say this water bottle, right? I'm the consumer. Where did I buy it? Family Mart. Okay, where does Family Mart buy from? I don't know. Maybe there's some retailers. So where do they make this plastic bottle? I don't know. Maybe Vietnam, China? I'm not sure. So if you start to dig in like more about the company, then you will know what it means. So if you're not so familiar with that product, if it's something that you can buy, I really recommend you to become a customer or try to buy that thing. Let's say car, right? It's expensive that I cannot afford it. I cannot buy it to try it, but I can still go to the dealership and see the difference between one company to another. Or I can do research, right? I can go online, or there's a beautiful tool called YouTube now. So you can go to YouTube. Like a lot of companies are doing YouTube channels now. So like sales, costs, those are the things that you should focus on. And in terms of like future of the company, if it's a public company, like on stock exchange market, then you can check the stock price, right? Is it going up? How about the competitor? Let's say you're applying to Panasonic, right? So is Panasonic, like, is their stock price going up over the past 5 years? Okay, let's compare them with Mitsubishi. How is it, right? So that's the thing, right? Okay, let's go to next slide. And I'm going to give you just a framework. This is a marketing framework called 4P. So pretty much, if you are applying to a customer, to a company, you can try to be a customer, right? So, and you can compare the company you're applying with the competitor. If it's like an established market, especially if you're applying for like big companies with a lot of competitors, then you should really do this. So let's say, where's it good? Okay, one of my new hire marketers, she's from Shiseido, so I'm going to compare with Shiseido and SK2. SK2, do you guys know that it's not a Japanese company, right? It looks like it, but it's from Procter & Gamble, P&G, right? So even that information itself, you find out something, right? So let's compare them. So I'm not so familiar with cosmetics, but let's say Shiseido versus SK2. SK2, you know, I think it's so expensive, but then how, if you go to department store, it's obvious. If you go to Amazon, you can check the price of SK2 and Shiseido product, right? And where do they sell it? Like, are they selling in like a expensive department store in the capital of a prefecture, like Ginza or Osaka? Or are they selling it in a, you know, typical local retail store? Yeah, I think it depends on the brand, but you can, you know, do this kind of research for each brand, right? So that's that. And promotion, I think you can go online. I actually went to YouTube the other day comparing SK2 versus Shiseido. It was so different. It was really different how they promoted it. Shiseido was more like a little serious, like beauty matters. Like, I don't even know how to present it. But on the other hand, SK2 would use like, you know, a lot of like comedians, like worldwide comedians or something to promote that product. So it kind of tells what kind of audience or what kind of message they're trying to, you know, send to the users, right? So you can you know, have fun with it, like try to compare the company that you're applying versus the competitors. And there are, you know, so many informations on LinkedIn, on internet, on YouTube. So try to, you know, analyze their business like this. Okay, that's that. And now I'm going to talk about like startup companies or some company that, oh, you can go back. Yeah. Let's go next slide. Yes, this slide. Thank you. So now I'm going to talk about how you can try to understand an innovative business. Okay. What's good? So in this case, it says competitor, but potential competitor is the proper word. So, okay, let me think. Which company is good? Okay. Let's say Netflix. Yeah, Netflix is good, maybe. Okay, so let's say you're applying to Netflix or something, right? So Netflix, who did they replace, right? What are they replacing? I mean, we watch like Stranger Things and, you know, Suits and all that like every day, but they have replaced something, right? Maybe in a way they replaced TV. I don't know. You guys can think about it. So like, you know, oh, TV, thank you. So this is just another framework called Bureau. It's a MBA kind of thing. So what is the value that it's providing to the customer, right? So is it rare or is it like imitable, or how is the organizations? So like, you know, if you're applying to like venture企業, startup companies, you can try to think like, okay, so what is their value? What did they replace, right? What was there before this company existed? right? And rare, like, then you can search, like, oh, is this solution like really, really rare? They say that it's innovative, but then does that kind of things exist in Japan or maybe the rest of the world? Then maybe when you take on the interview, you can talk about the potential competitor that you find online. For example, there's I've done career consultation recently, so I want to talk about this particular company. So there is this, I'm not going to say which company it is, but there's this company who connects industry expert and a client. So they're like in the middle, right? So they will, a company, like, let's say, like manufacturer company will be the client, and they'll be asking, okay, we want to sell this TV. So can you try to find an expert in like sales network in Japan to sell TV, for example, right? So this company is doing everything like hand by hand, like handmade, but they do have like a lot of expert network, like because they have created this system to connect with a lot of experts. So it sounds already innovative, but according to my research in Japan, there is actually an IT company, like a venture startup company, who is actually trying to do everything online, like connecting expert and client. But then are they competing? In my eyes, they were competing, but actually they were targeting different kind of size of the clients. So I mean, like, sorry, but I hope I didn't get you bored, but you can try to compare, or you can try to see if the solution is rare or not. So that's that, okay? Okay, let's go next. So I want you to kind of like, when you do these kind of analysis or try to do your homework, I think you can, if it's a company that you're really interested, maybe let's say you applied to 50 companies, maybe you're only interested in like 5 companies or 10 companies. For those 10 companies, like really visualize, like think about the day 1 or day 100 or day 300 in that company, because you are going to invest your time in that company, right? So try to visualize yourself that you're already an employee of the company, or even a CEO of the company. Then when you try to like look at companies from CEO or employees perspective, it will change. Like, you're not job seeker anymore, but you're already the employee. So I'm not going to ask you to do it for every company you apply to, but at least for those companies you're interested, make sure you do your homework. That's really going to make key difference between you and other people when you write the Shibodoki or when you take on the interviews. Okay, let's go next. Okay, so I just want to talk about the current trend and also touch upon the language skills. So surprisingly, against the typical, how could I say, stereotype, I should say, of a Japanese company or Japanese people in general. People like to follow order. Maybe they're good at precision, like precise things, following orders. Japanese people are good, but then for fresh graduate, I guess they want to change things around, right? So they're expecting new grad to be innovative, proactive, and also standalone, and teamwork, right? And according to, I spoke to a lot of HRs, and they really don't care about nationalities, but they care about the language capability, because Japan is an island, and a lot of clients, even if it's an international company, their clients are most of the time Japanese. So I'm not going to say you don't need Japanese. I'm just telling you a very honest truth. You need Japanese. And some companies still say that N1 is a requirement. The question is, do they really know the difference between N1 holder without kanji knowledge and with kanji knowledge, right? Some N2 students, they are very good communicator, that they can speak better than N1 holders sometimes. But recruiters don't really know that. So if you're close to N2, try to get N1. If you're close to if you're still N3, try to get N2. And even if when you apply to companies, you only have, let's say, N2 or N3, just keep on studying. Just keep on studying, and don't be ashamed that you don't have N2 or N3 or N1. Just commit to it, and just tell the write on your resume that you are going to take N2 in July 3rd or in December or something, right? So yeah, but I just want to stress that even if you have N1, but then if you don't have a good year story, then you won't make it. So N1 is not the only thing that matters. I have seen students who got a job with N2. I have seen students who have done non-traditional way of job hunting as well. But then instead, what they did is that they reached out to so many people, right? So they did try to do so many like other things like outside of network. So that's that, okay? All right, let's go next. We are almost finished. So these are the questions that the recruiters will ask in interviews. What's your strengths? You know, and they will really dig in deeper. So just don't write it on the paper. Like write something that you really mean. So another tips that I can give you is that when you finalize your Jiko PR and all that, just pretend me, Hiromi, will like interrogate you for like another 20 minutes, right? Keep digging you. Why did you do that? How did you do that? Did you do that alone? What was the difficulty? And if you feel like, oh, can't even answer for 5 minutes, then that's not a good story. Try to find a story that you can talk about for like hours and hours, maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes, right? So that's the trait of a good story. Okay, let's go next slide. And thank you. So these are the questions that companies want to know about your shibodoki. So what kind of, what's the weakness of our company? If you don't do your homework, you don't even know, right? If you don't compare with the competitor, like you won't know, right? Okay, so if I go to Shiseido interview, I would say, your promotion could change because I believe blah, 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 right? It can be wrong, right? They just want to know that if you have done your homework, right? So, okay, that's that. Let's go next. Okay, so I received questions about internship, right? So there's so many options to, how can I say this? There's so many platforms to do job hunting. So one of the person who asked question earlier said he went to Tokyo Summer Career Forum. So on the top left corner, careerforum.net. So this is probably the oldest and probably the best places, one of the best places for students to go, I guess, if you want to do job hunting, right? And for internship, on the bottom right corner, Wantedly is a very biggest platform for internship. It's a Japanese platform. I mean, most of the platform here is in Japanese, but Wantedly is used by a lot of startup companies. I don't know how many companies, thousands of companies here. Even our company like hires interns here, and not just us, but there's so many startups trying to, get a second hand because they don't have enough human resource, right? So Wantedly for internship. I really recommend using this service. And there's so many other services, and I just want to talk about the, Nicole, is your screen okay? Yeah, thank you. All right, so on the top right corner, I'm just writing few information here because I get this question, I don't speak Japanese at all. Can I find a job? My answer to you is that it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to say there's plenty of jobs that you can only survive with English. No. That's not the situation here. You could find like a recruiter job, like a sourcers job, like HR companies, or you can find maybe teaching jobs. Or if you're an engineer, that's a little different story. Some companies in Japan, because we don't have enough engineers here, would hire you even if you don't speak Japanese. But yeah, so that's that. Okay, let's go to next slide. Thank you. And I'm just gonna pass you some messages and I'll be done with it. So if you started your job hunting, I think you have tendency to focus on the big companies, right? Because you wanna feel secured, of course. Why not, right? But then they're only like 0.3% of large enterprises in Japan out of like 3.8 million companies in Japan. And that's the beauty of Japan. Even in like a small, medium-sized enterprises, there's so many profitable companies, technology-driven companies. Startups in Japan is like really rising. So broaden the horizon, really, really. You might not know the company in the beginning, but you might be the one, or they might be the one for you. So please don't, narrow too much, because it gets more competitive, of course, if it's a famous company, right? I'm not saying that you cannot get a job from a famous company, but just broaden the horizon. That's my message one. And second question is that second message is that when you are in the classroom in Japanese university, you might sometimes feel like, oh, just, let's go to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah, you might feel like, oh, maybe I should try to keep my mouth shut, just pretend as if I'm one of them. But when it comes to job hunting, even the most quiet guy in your school, whether he or she is Japanese or not, will try to stand out. They will try to stand out. That's just how the game of job hunting works. So don't be too Japanese. Just try to stand out, right? Last, I just want to tell you that, I once studied outside of Japan too, and you guys came outside of Japan to study here in Japan. So, you guys are already challengers. Just know that, right? And you can, of course, respect local culture here. But like I said earlier, don't be too Japanese, because it is really gonna kill your identity or uniqueness. And if you're not confident in Japanese, yeah, I mean, you won't be able to speak as fluent as me. I was born and raised in here, right? Why not, right? I cannot speak your language as much as you do, like no matter how hard I study. But it's your second or third language, so brush it up. Please don't be obsessed with like small mistakes. Some people might tell you, keigo, oh, you gotta do it properly, right? No. As long as you can use desu, masu form, you can make mistakes. Just make mistakes. It's okay. It's so much more important that you have a better your story and try to get the message across so that you can convince the person you're talking to in front of you. So yeah, that's that. That'll be it. So what's your story? So I'm done with my presentation. So again, if you guys have any questions, feel free.
Yeah, if you have questions, please raise your hand. Who was it? I think it was Alpu. If you have your additional question from earlier, you can ask it right now.
It's all right. I think I got the picture here. Thank you. Thanks for the explanation.
Sure.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, okay. Chige, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hiromi-san, I think you mentioned you studied criminal psychology at the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious as to how, if there were maybe skills or knowledge you were able to translate into your current profession in business. Or did you have like an outside experience apart from maybe your 4-year university? Was it like a master's that helped you, gain your experience in business? Or I was just curious about that.
Thank you. Are you asking me if my criminal psychology academic background helped to get my first career, or actually the career that I have now?
Oh, I didn't. I probably missed the part where you mentioned your first career, but yeah, if your background in criminal psychology was able to, help you with your current career, or did you have to get like outside experience in business?
Okay. So, all right. Just to give you my background a little bit. So, after I graduated from criminal psychology university in the States, I did my job hunting and I got job at a company called Daikin Corporation. It's a Japanese manufacturer, and that was just sales and marketing job. It was a generalist position. So, did it help? In my understanding, yeah, it did help, but from recruiters' perspective, I don't think they really didn't care about my major for my first career. And to answer your question, if my criminal psychology background helped to get where I am right now, like starting my business and all that, yeah, it did help. Psychology works in almost anything, so it did help. But I cannot read your mind, but I can try to think that everybody has fatal mistakes. Everybody can be crazy. I have that pre-assumption when speaking to people. So yeah, I mean, it did help maybe. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question.
Thank you. I think Lauren had their hand up earlier. Did you want to ask a question?
Yes, my question is, what would you recommend to understand the company's culture and how they operate on daily tasks. Like, because you don't know them until you have joined them, and obviously you can't join them because you want to know about them. So what would you recommend to understand the company's culture?
Okay, thank you. So I guess let me just rephrase his question. So he wanted to ask, how do I know the corporate culture or work culture, right? Because you never worked with them. Okay, there are a few ways. If you use LinkedIn, that's a good start, and you can try to find somebody who is already working there. And if it's a person from your same country, I think it's easier to ask. If it's somebody who can speak English, I think it's easier to ask. Just approach them, just tell them that you are interested in the company. Is it possible for us to have a casual chat on Zoom? A lot of proactive students do that. So that's one thing. And also, you can join like those seminars and ask questions. But yeah, they will always say kind of beautiful things in their kind of seminars. But they do say some real things, especially when you can talk to young professionals like senpais. So just make use of those kind of network. Yeah, and we at JPort Journal, we have like Ask Senpai platform as well. So you can ask questions there. Or we do host a lot of webinars and seminars and events with a lot of senpais working in Japan. So you can stay tuned for that too. Yeah, thank you. Another hand, right?
I'm sorry, I'll just ask Riley's question because he asked it a bit earlier. He said, I've always heard that traditionally Japanese companies expect you to stay in the company for a long time. Is that still relevant for modern times, or is it more common to see people moving between jobs or companies?
Okay, good question. Over time, right? Over time and like switching jobs, right? Okay, it's getting more common to switch jobs. Yeah, it is getting more common. In terms of overtime, I think it has gotten a lot better, much better. I think it's a urban myth. Like it's like kind of like a, I don't know, stigma or stereotype of Japanese company. A lot of companies don't work overtime anymore because there were some incidents that's unfortunate happened to young people back then. Okay, so a lot of companies, they just ask you to leave. Like in my old company, first career, they would just turn off the light at 8 o'clock, just asking me to go home. But and I gotta just say this to be fair for the companies in Japan or anywhere in the world, there is overtime, okay, and you get paid for it. So there is overtime in most of the companies, but it's just that there are like busy time of the year sometimes. Maybe if the project is like super duper important, you might have to work a little hours. But yeah, I mean, you get paid for the overtime, and so that's how it is. Yeah. But in terms of like switching jobs, like a lot of people switch jobs now, like even in Japan. Yeah.
Thank you. Hanna, you can go ahead.
Hello, Hiromi-san. Thank you very much for a wonderful session. Yeah, and I want to ask a question about like so I want to seek jobs in fields like international investment banks or consulting firms. So I want to ask like if should I focus on brushing up my Japanese levels to N2 or N1 level, or should I focus more on attaining certificates like CPA or CFA, or like which one do you think is more important and worth putting more effort into? Thank you.
That's a very good question. It depends on how much time you have left, but both definitely. But if you don't really have so much, let's say, for example, you don't have to disclose your personal information, but let's say your Japanese level is now N3, for example, right? And you only have 1 year left to graduate something, right? Then I don't know, maybe if I were you, I might prioritize getting CPA, CFA, so you can apply to jobs outside of Japan as well. But then if your dream is to kind of stay here in Japan, then now is the time to work hard, I guess, to brush up your Japanese. And we speak to a lot of senpais working in Japan, maybe hundreds of senpais, and they always say that learning Japanese really broadened their career option and life options. So there's always like a bright side about it too. So yeah, I think I would recommend you to do both, but it really depends on your life stage. Yeah.
Currently, I'm actually a first-year student, so
First year?
yeah. Yes.
To do both. Come on, like you got a lot of time to improve your stuff. So I mean, why not? Why not just aim for both? Like aim higher, aim higher. Like, you know, even consider doing like internship or long-term internship or something, or from your second year or something, you know, get experience out there. And yeah, definitely do both.
Yeah, I thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think Hiromi-san, should we wrap it up since it's now 8
Oh,
p.m.
all right, sure, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you,
Thank you so
guys.
much for thank you, Hiromi-san, for your time, and thank you for everybody to who asked questions. I feel like it made the discussion like way more interesting. But you can see on the screen here we have our SNS links. I can stay here for a while. You can screenshot and yeah, but if you search up JPort Japan on like Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, it's really easy to find us. So yes, and then we have our Instagram at JPort Japan. We put a lot of different informational Instagram posts, but we also have event posts in the future. And in relation to that, on July 25th, we'll be having a series. From July 25th, we'll be having a series of events called Empower Youth, in which we will hear real stories from senpais about job hunting in Japan. So the first session that we'll have is about the non-native Japanese speakers' experience working in Japan. Since I'm from the Philippines, I'm not from here, I feel like it's really intimidating to even imagine how it would be like working in a Japanese company. So if you're interested to learn about that from senpais who are like from the Philippines, Vietnam, and I think Taiwan, please feel free to apply for this event. So if you follow us on Instagram or any of our socials, you will see more information there in a few days. But I think that should be it for today. Thank you so much for your time, and we will be wrapping it up here. Thank you.
Everyone, we just sent out a survey link. So Nico, could you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, it's exceeded a little time. So we really would love to improve our quality of event and our services. So it takes maybe 5 minutes of your time, and we kindly ask you, if it's possible, to cooperate with this survey. Yeah, it would be great if we can really get your user insights so that we can improve our event quality, services qualities. But yeah, Nicole, let's, I guess we can wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for everybody who came here today. You can take a screenshot of the event feedback survey or save the link that Hiromi-san sent in the chat. But yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Hiromi-san, did you stop the live?